I drove to my son's house on Thanksgiving morning with a pie in my lap. My son Marcus called me 3 days earlier. His voice was happy and warm. "Mom, can you help me with something? We're having a big dinner this year. Sarah's boss is coming over with some friends from her work. I need money for the food and decorations. Costs more than we planned. Before we go on, please click the like button and tell me in the comments what your favorite Thanksgiving food is." My fingers were already opening my purse. I pulled out my checkbook while holding the phone with my other hand. "How much money do you need, sweetie? I can write you a check right now." "We need $800, he said. "I know it's a lot of money, but Sarah wants everything to look perfect. Her boss is very important at her company." I didn't think twice about it. I wrote the check immediately. $800 was a lot, yes. But I had already paid for Marcus's college. That was $40,000. I paid for their wedding too. That was $20,000. I helped them buy their first car. That was $12,000. What was $800 compared to all that? "Consider it done, honey," I said as I tore the check from my book. "This dinner sounds really special. What time should I come over?" "I'll bring my special pumpkin pie. The one you loved when you were little." The phone went quiet. It wasn't a normal quiet. It was the kind of quiet that feels cold and scary. The air in my kitchen suddenly felt different. "Actually, Mom," his voice changed completely. All the warmth disappeared like ice melting in the sun. "You're not invited to dinner. This is really just for Sarah's work people. It's not a family thing. It's business." I stood up from my chair so fast it almost fell over. I walked to the window and looked out at my garden. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "It's for professional people," he said. His words were sharp now. "Sarah's boss is coming. The vice president of her company is coming. Some managers are coming too. This is really important for Sarah's job." "It's not personal, Mom. Not personal." My voice shook, but I tried to keep it steady. "Marcus, I paid for your college for 4 years. I gave you $20,000 for your wedding. I helped you buy your house and your car. And now you're telling me I'm not good enough to sit at your table. Mom, I'm 32 years old now." His voice got defensive and mean. "I've built my own life. I have my own family now. I can't have you showing up in your old sweaters and that rusty car when I'm trying to help Sarah impress her vice president. You just don't fit in with these people. Don't fit in." I turned away from the window. My reflection in the glass showed a woman who was 60 years old. My hair was gray. I had lines around my eyes. I wore simple clothes because I didn't need fancy things. I had spent my whole life working hard and saving money to help my family. "So I embarrass you?" "Yes." It wasn't really a question. "You always make everything about you," he said. "Look, I need to go shopping. The money is already in my bank account, right?" "Thanks, Mom. I'll call you after the holiday." Then he hung up. I stood there holding the phone. The sound of nothing was louder than any yelling. I looked at his picture on my wall. It was from his graduation day. He had his arms around me and we were both smiling so big. That was 10 years ago. When did things change? Or were they always like this and I just didn't want to see it? I walked back to my table slowly. The checkbook was still open. It showed all the money I had given away over the years. I had been so careful with my money for 40 years. I saved and invested wisely. I had more money than Marcus knew about. Much more. From my drawer I took out an old photograph. Marcus was 4 years old. He was sitting on my shoulders at the park. His hands were in my hair. We were both laughing at something his father had said. Back then I was strong enough to carry him everywhere. Back when he wanted me around. I looked at that little boy's face for a long time. Then I turned the picture over so I couldn't see it anymore. The morning sun was coming through my window. It made everything look gold and orange. 2 days before Thanksgiving. My son had just taken $800 from me and told me I wasn't good enough to eat dinner with him. He told me I didn't fit into the life I had paid for him to have. I sat back down in my chair. It made a creaking sound. The hurt was there in my chest. It was heavy and sharp. But under the hurt something else was growing. Something colder than hurt. Something stronger than sadness. I looked at my phone. I looked at the picture I had turned over. I looked at the check register on my table. Something big had changed inside me. I could feel it settling into my bones like cold water. Marcus thought he knew who I was. An old woman in worn-out sweaters and an old car. Someone to use when he needed money. Someone to hide away when important people came over. He had no idea who I really was. He didn't know what I was capable of. He didn't know how much power quiet women have when they finally decide to use it. My kitchen got darker as I sat there. Something new was growing in the place where mother's love used to be. I sat in that chair for 30 minutes after Marcus hung up. The phone stayed quiet on the table. The picture stayed face down. The check register still showed $800. I stood up and walked to my filing cabinet. I opened the bottom drawer. Inside were folders with labels I had written myself. Marcus education. Marcus wedding. Marcus house. Marcus car. I spread them all across my table and opened each one. College receipts from State University. 4 years of payments. Copies of checks I had written every semester. The wire transfer paper for $20,000 the week before his wedding. The cashier's check for $15,000 to help buy his house. Numbers and papers and years of saying yes without thinking twice. I picked up each paper and looked at it carefully. This was proof of love. Or maybe it was proof of something else. I got my calculator and added everything up. College $40,000. Wedding $20,000. House help $15,000. Car loan $10,000. Furniture when they first moved in $5,000. Emergency money when Marcus lost his job 3 years ago, $8,000. Small loans here and there for vacations and appliances and repairs. I pressed the equals button. $98,000 across 12 years. I wrote the number on a piece of paper and underlined it. The money wasn't the main problem though. The pattern was the problem. Between the money papers I found old photographs. Marcus at age 6 with missing front teeth, laughing on my lap. Marcus at 12 rolling his eyes at something I said but still smiling. Marcus at 17 at his high school graduation. I was standing next to him alone because his father had left us 5 years before that. I picked up the graduation photo and studied it hard. I remembered that day so clearly. The hot sun. The uncomfortable metal chairs. The pride I felt when they called his name. He hugged me after and whispered thank you for everything against my shoulder. Where did that boy go? I looked through the newer photos. His wedding where he barely talked to me during the party. Holiday cards he sent with printed messages and a quick signature. Pictures from Christmas 2 years ago. That was the last time I was invited to his home. Even then I remembered feeling like a chore. Like something to check off a list instead of someone to welcome. I tried to remember the last time Marcus called just to talk. Just to ask how I was doing. Not to ask for money. Not to tell me about his life in that breezy way that didn't need me to respond. Just to connect. I couldn't remember any call like that. My husband's death came back to me then. Robert died when he was 50 from a heart attack that happened too fast. Marcus was 24 then. He was living in his first apartment and starting his job. I thought he would need me more. I thought sadness would bring us closer. Instead he pulled away. He called less. He visited almost never. At the funeral he stood there without crying while I could barely breathe. Later he told me I needed to move on instead of being sad. Maybe my sadness embarrassed him even back then. I closed the last folder as lunchtime came. My table was covered with proof. Years and years of saying yes. Years of hoping that love and money would be enough to keep my son close to me. It hadn't been enough. Because what Marcus wanted wasn't a mother. He wanted a bank account that didn't ask questions. I stood up and walked through my small house. The living room had a comfortable couch that was old but nice. The kitchen had appliances that worked fine even if they weren't new and shiny. The guest room where Marcus used to sleep during college. Now it just had boxes I never opened. I saw it all through his eyes now. Not good enough. Embarrassing. Not right for his carefully planned image. But this home was honest. It was real. It wasn't fake like the life he was building with my money. I took a shower and got dressed in my regular clothes. Clean pants and a simple sweater. My comfortable shoes. I didn't try to dress fancy or change who I was. That wasn't the point of what I was going to do. In the bathroom mirror I looked at myself. Gray hair. Lines around my eyes. A 60-year-old woman who had spent her life being kind and generous and patient. But that patience had limits. I had found them. Today was Thanksgiving. Marcus expected me to stay home. To accept being pushed away quietly. To disappear back into my simple life until he needed another check. I would not do that. I was going to his house. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at his table. That dignity was gone. But I was going to look him in the eyes in front of his important guests. I was going to make him explain this treatment. Make him admit what he had done. This wasn't about $800 anymore. It wasn't even about the $98,000 before that. This was about making him see me. Really see me. Not as money to use or an embarrassment to hide. But as a human being who deserved basic respect. He said I didn't fit in his life. Fine. Let's see how well I fit standing at his door when his wife's boss is watching. The drive to Marcus's house took 50 minutes through holiday traffic. I kept my hands steady on the wheel of my old sedan. The car was from 2008 but it ran perfectly fine. At red lights I watched families in newer cars. I saw houses with decorations and lights. Normal people having normal holidays. I had all morning and afternoon to change my mind. I had many chances to stay home. To let this go. To be the easy mother Marcus expected me to be. I didn't take any of those chances. It was 5:30 when I turned onto Marcus's street. The neighborhood was expensive. Big houses with perfect lawns. 3-car garages. Fancy stone on the front of every house. His house was on a corner with lights in every window. The driveway was full of cars. A silver Lexus. Black Audi. 2 Tesla cars. A Range Rover. More cars were parked on the street. I parked my old sedan at the end of the row. It looked so different next to those expensive cars. Like it didn't belong. My car cost less than 1 month of payments on any of their cars. I turned off the engine and sat there for a minute. Through the big front windows I could see people inside. The house had that open design where you can see everything at once. Living room and dining room and kitchen all together in one expensive space. Guests were holding wine glasses. They stood in groups laughing at things I couldn't hear. Sarah appeared wearing a red dress. She was carrying a big plate. Marcus walked behind her in a dark suit. They looked like they were in a magazine. Perfect. Successful. I got out of my car and walked toward the house. The path was made of expensive stones fitted together perfectly. Little lights showed the way through shaped bushes. Through the door I could hear music playing. Something soft and safe. I straightened my sweater. I took one deep breath. Then I knocked on the door. 3 times. Firm and steady. Talking inside stopped. Heard footsteps. The door opened. Sarah stood there in her red dress that probably cost more than my monthly bills. Behind her I saw about 15 people turning to look at the door. They were curious about who was interrupting. Wine glasses caught the light. The dining table had more food than those people could ever eat. Sarah's face changed fast. First surprise. Then recognition. Then something hard and mean. She didn't invite me in. Instead she stepped into the doorway. One hand on the frame. Blocking me from entering. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was loud enough for everyone inside to hear. She wanted them to hear. "I have nothing to thank you for, old woman. Get out of here." Kept my voice calm and steady. "Came to see my son. This is still a family holiday no matter who you invited." Movement behind Sarah. Marcus appeared. His face showed confusion that quickly became anger. Not anger at Sarah's words. Anger at me being there. "Mom, what are you doing here?" His voice went high and stressed. "I told you not to come. This dinner is for respectable people. You don't belong here." The words hit me like someone throwing rocks. But I kept my face neutral. I looked past them at the guests. Some looked away. Others watched with that uncomfortable interest people have when they see family drama. A few smiled awkwardly, not knowing what to do. 15 pairs of eyes all watching this. I see, I said quietly. 15 people at your table and not one seat for your mother. The woman who paid for this house. Sarah's face turned red. This is a professional dinner. I can't have, she stopped talking but the rest hung in the air. Can't have you embarrassing me. Marcus stepped closer. He was taller than me and he used that height to try to scare me. You heard her. She doesn't want you here. Nobody wants you here. Now leave before you embarrass yourself even more. I stood on that doorstep feeling shame settle over me like a heavy blanket. Being rejected in public. Being pushed away in front of an audience. Some of the guests had moved closer. They were openly watching now. A woman with pearls whispered to the man next to her. Someone else looked away feeling uncomfortable. Could force my way in. Could raise my voice. I could demand to enter. I could make a scene that would definitely ruin Sarah's evening. But something stopped me. Not weakness. Strategy. Making chaos now would make me look desperate. It would prove every mean thing they said about me was true. I nodded once. Not agreeing. Just acknowledging. I was about to turn away. About to walk back to my car and leave them to their perfect dinner. Then a voice called out from inside the house. Margaret Coleman. The voice cut through the awkward silence. It was a woman's voice. Older. Strong. Froze. Marcus's face showed confusion. The smugness disappeared. Sarah turned around, her face going white. A woman in her 60s pushed through the cluster of guests. She was tall with silver hair. She wore an expensive suit that looked professional but not showy. I recognized her right away even though I hadn't seen her in person for years. Patricia Blackwell. She used to be the CEO of the company where I worked for 25 years before I retired. The woman who called me into her office when I retired to tell me I was one of the smartest business developers the company ever had. She reached the door. She looked at me. Then at Sarah blocking the doorway. Then back at me. Margaret, she said. Her voice was warm and genuinely happy. I thought that was you through the window. What in the world are you doing standing out here in the cold? I had made my choice. Arguing with Marcus and Sarah in front of their guests would only prove everything they said about me. I could see it in the faces watching from inside. Some felt sorry for me. Others felt uncomfortable. A few were entertained by the drama. The heat of shame pressed against my face. I nodded once. Not in agreement. Just understanding that I knew exactly where I stood. I turned toward the stone walkway. My shoulders were back. My head was up. I wasn't running away. I was choosing to leave with dignity. Partner. Margaret, wait. I'm coming with you. The voice cut through the murmur of guests like a knife. Loud. Commanding. Familiar in a way that made me stop walking. I stopped with one foot still in the air. I turned back around. Through the cluster of people inside, a tall woman in an expensive gray suit pushed forward. She moved with purpose. She set down a wine glass on a table without looking. The crowd parted just because of her presence. When she reached the door, she didn't ask Sarah to move. She physically moved past her. She stepped onto the porch next to me. Patricia Blackwell. I hadn't seen her in person for 4 years. We had exchanged emails about investment reports and business strategies. She looked older. More silver in her hair. Deeper lines around her eyes. But she still had the same power I remembered from the 90s when we built our first real estate investment company together. Margaret. Her face showed real confusion and concern. What are you doing here? I didn't know you knew the Hendersons. This is supposed to be my employees' Thanksgiving dinner. Employees. The word hung in the air like smoke. I didn't know you'd be here either, I said quietly. Patricia's eyes moved from me to Sarah and Marcus. Then back to me. I watched understanding start to show on her face. Like puzzle pieces clicking together when you finally see the picture. She looked at Sarah. Her expression got sharper. Sarah Henderson. Henderson is your married name. Your name before marriage was Coleman, wasn't it? She turned to me slowly. Margaret Coleman. Is she your daughter-in-law? The question made everything stop. The music still played. Something soft and safe. But every conversation had stopped. Sarah's face lost all its color. Marcus's mouth opened but no sound came out. I could see guests in the back pulling out their phones, ready to record whatever came next. Yes, I said. My voice came out steady and factual. Sarah is married to my son Marcus. I came to wish them happy Thanksgiving. Seems I was wrong to come. Patricia's expression shifted through several stages. Understanding, then disbelief, then something cold and sharp. She looked at Marcus. Sarah, then back at me. Wrong to come. Her voice had an edge I remembered from difficult business meetings. From deals that weren't going well. You came to your own son's Thanksgiving dinner and you were turned away at the door while he's entertaining his wife's boss and co-workers. The silence stretched tight. Sarah gripped the doorframe. Her knuckles were white. Marcus had taken a step backward. His earlier aggression disappeared like smoke. Patricia looked between them for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried through the open door to every guest inside. Someone needs to explain this to me right now. No one moved. Sarah's mouth opened then closed. Marcus seemed frozen. The guests pressed closer. An audience waiting for the next act. Patricia didn't wait for their explanation. She turned slightly. She addressed not just me but everyone within hearing distance. I think everyone should understand who Margaret Coleman is. Her words came out clear and deliberate, cutting through the awkward silence. She's not just my old partner from the 90s. Margaret is one of the founding investors in Blackwell Properties. I saw several guests look at each other. Few nodded. They recognized the company name. Patricia continued. Her tone was matter-of-fact but her words were devastating. Blackwell Properties owns 40% of Summit Solutions. That makes Margaret one of the largest partial owners of the company where you all work. Someone gasped. Phone made a camera sound. The rest of the color drained from Sarah's face. Marcus's hand that was still holding a glass started shaking badly. Patricia looked directly at Marcus. She held his gaze. This woman could buy your house with cash from her purse and not even notice. You pause. Let that sink in. And you just told her she has nothing to be thanked for. Marcus's hand went loose. The glass fell. Seemed to fall in slow motion. Then it shattered against the tile floor. Red wine spread across the white tile like blood. No one moved to clean it up. We'll be talking about your treatment of company investors on Monday morning, Patricia said. Her voice was formal now, heavy with professional consequence. 9 o'clock. My office. Don't be late. Sarah swayed a little. She gripped the door frame like it was the only thing keeping her standing. Her free hand went to her throat then to her stomach. She looked like she might throw up. Patricia turned to me. Her expression softened immediately. Come on, partner. Let's find somewhere to celebrate Thanksgiving with people who understand gratitude and respect. She gestured toward the guests who were watching. For a moment no one moved. Then a woman in her 50s stepped forward firmly. She set down her drink. I think I'll join you, she said clearly. Her movement broke whatever spell held the others. 2 more guests stepped forward. A man and another woman. They reached for coats. They abandoned drinks on different surfaces. They were making a choice. Publicly choosing to align with me instead of their hosts. Patricia took my arm. Not to support me. As an equal. As a partner. We walked down the stone path toward the street. The 3 guests followed. Already talking quietly among themselves. Behind us I heard the murmur rising. Whispers spreading through the remaining crowd. I didn't look back. The November evening air felt cool against my face. It cleared away the heat of earlier shame. Patricia was already talking. Her voice warm and conversational. Like we were just old friends meeting for dinner as planned. There's an Italian restaurant in Westlake I've been wanting to try, she said. Unless you'd prefer something else. We walked down the path in a loose group. Patricia and I in front, the 3 employees behind us. The cool November air carried voices from inside Marcus's house. They were getting louder as we moved away. Gossip. Speculation. The sound of a party falling apart. Behind us I heard Sarah's door close. Not slammed. That would have meant anger and control. This was quiet. The soft click of someone whose strength had failed. Patricia waited until we reached the street. We stood beside my old sedan before speaking again. The 3 guests paused at a respectful distance, giving us space. Margaret. She turned to face me fully. I need to understand what just happened. You came to your son's Thanksgiving dinner and he turned you away in front of his wife's colleagues. Boss. Me. I looked at her. This woman who had been my partner almost 30 years ago. Who trusted my judgment when we were building something from nothing. Who made millions alongside me when our early property investments paid off. She called Tuesday asking for money, I said quietly. $800 for food and decorations. I wrote the check immediately without thinking. Then I asked what time to arrive for dinner. She told me I wasn't invited. Said it was a business gathering and I didn't fit. Patricia's jaw got tight. Because of how you look. How you dress. Apparently my old sweaters and my car are embarrassing. I glanced at my sedan. Its faded paint looked stark against the luxury cars lining the street. She said I don't belong with respectable people. That's... Patricia stopped herself. I could see her controlling her anger. Margaret, I had no idea. I've known Sarah for 3 years. She joined our marketing department right after college. She never mentioned she had family in Austin. Never mentioned you at all. That shouldn't have hurt. After everything tonight, it shouldn't have added anything to the weight I was carrying. But it did. Marcus works for you too. Yes. No, Patricia said. But Sarah's been there long enough that this kind of behavior reflects badly on our company culture. We don't treat people this way. Especially not investors. One of the employees who had followed us approached carefully. She was a woman in her 40s. Someone I vaguely recognized from company reports. Mrs. Coleman, I'm Linda Martinez. I'm a senior project manager. I just wanted to say what happened in there was completely wrong. I'm sorry you experienced that. The woman who had stepped forward first joined her. Rebecca Chen, head of operations. I agree with Linda. That was unprofessional. And she paused, choosing her words carefully. Personally cruel. The 3rd employee murmured agreement. They were being careful and diplomatic. But their message was clear. They had witnessed something that crossed lines. Both personal and professional. Thank you, I said simply. Patricia looked at the 3 of them. Rebecca, Linda, I trust you'll handle any workplace discussions about tonight with appropriate discretion. Of course, Rebecca said immediately. Though I suspect the discussion will happen regardless of what we do or say. Let it happen, Patricia said. Sometimes people need to see consequences happen. She turned to me. Margaret, I meant what I said about dinner. These 3 are welcome too if they'd like. Or we can make it just us. Catch up properly. I looked at the group. These people had made a choice to leave a party. To publicly align with me against their colleague. The reason behind it might have been professional calculation. But the gesture still meant something. I think dinner together sounds right, I said. If everyone is willing. The agreement came immediately. Linda suggested the Italian restaurant Patricia had mentioned. Rebecca offered to call ahead for a table. Within minutes we had formed a small convoy. Patricia's Mercedes leading. My sedan following. The other 2 vehicles behind us. As I climbed into my car, I glanced once at Marcus's house. Through the large windows I could see figures moving around. Guests gathering coats. The party was clearly ending early. I couldn't see Sarah or Marcus. They were probably in a back room somewhere dealing with what had happened. I started my engine and followed Patricia's tail lights through the neighborhood. The drive to Westlake took 45 minutes. We drove together, maintaining our formation through traffic. My car felt different somehow. Less like a mark of shame. More like simple transportation. What had felt embarrassing hours ago now felt honest and real. The Italian restaurant sat on a hill with a view of the city lights. Patricia had called ahead during the drive. They had a private room waiting for us. The 5 of us settled around a round wooden table. Menus appeared right away. A waiter poured water with smooth efficiency. "Order whatever you want," Patricia said, looking at me specifically. "This is on me. Consider it payment for the evening you should have had." The conversation started slowly and carefully. The employees knew they were in unusual territory. Having Thanksgiving dinner with the former CEO and a major investor wasn't normal. But Patricia was good at putting people at ease. Gradually the awkwardness faded away. Linda talked about challenges with project timelines. Rebecca mentioned upcoming company initiatives. The third employee, whose name I learned was James, discussed his department. They included me naturally in the conversation. They asked questions about the early days of the real estate company. They seemed genuinely interested in the investment side of business. Patricia ordered wine. A bottle that probably cost more than Sarah's entire food budget. When it arrived, she raised her glass. "To Margaret Coleman," she said. "A woman who taught me that quiet strength beats loud showing off every time. And to the importance of remembering where we come from and who helped us get there." The words hit harder than they should have. I raised my glass with the others. I felt unexpected gratitude mixing with the residue of earlier shame. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Once. 3 times. I ignored it. We ate well. Pasta cooked perfectly. Sauces that actually tasted like real food instead of decoration. Patricia told stories about our early investing days. She made me sound more impressive than I felt at the time. The employees laughed. They relaxed. They stopped being quite so carefully professional. My phone buzzed again. And again. "You should probably check that," Patricia said quietly. "In case it's important." Pulled out my phone. 6 missed calls. 10 text messages. All from Marcus's number. The first text message said, "You vindictive old woman. You did this on purpose." I put the phone away without reading the rest. The dinner continued for another hour. Patricia kept the conversation flowing. She asked about operations challenges. She discussed market trends. She made everyone comfortable. But my mind had split. Half of me was present at the table. Half was already thinking about what Marcus's messages meant. Around 9 o'clock we settled the bill. I tried to pay, but Patricia insisted. "You've had enough taken from you tonight," she said quietly. "Let me give something back." Outside, the November air had turned cold. We stood in the parking lot. 5 people who had shared an unexpected evening together. "This was better than any corporate dinner I've attended," Rebecca said. She looked at me directly. "Thank you for joining us, Mrs. Coleman. I hope we see you at company events in the future." The others said similar things. We exchanged good wishes. Then they were climbing into their vehicles. Tail lights disappearing into the night. Patricia stayed behind. "You all right, Margaret?" Those messages were from Marcus. "He's angry." "I'd expect so," Patricia said. Her expression hardened. "He should be more worried than angry. What he and Sarah did tonight has professional consequences. We don't mistreat investors. And we especially don't humiliate them publicly." "I didn't plan any of this," I said. "I know," Patricia replied. "That's what makes it worse for them." She squeezed my shoulder. "Get some rest. We'll talk Monday. And Margaret, you did nothing wrong tonight. Remember that." I drove home alone. My car felt particularly empty after the convoy earlier. The roads were quiet. Most of Austin was already settled into their post-Thanksgiving state. I pulled into my driveway around 10:30. I turned off the engine. I sat there for a moment looking at my house. Modest, comfortable, honest, everything Sarah had rejected. Inside, I poured a glass of water. I stood at my kitchen sink staring out at the dark backyard. My phone buzzed again. Then again. Pulled it out. 12 text messages now. 18 missed calls. I opened the messages. The first few were similar. Accusations. Fury. Blame. Then Marcus's tone shifted. "You think you can ruin us? We'll make you regret this." Sarah is devastated. Her career is over because of you being vindictive. We'll find a way to pay you back for this embarrassment. The threats were clear even if vague. I took screenshots of each message. I backed them up to my computer. Evidence. If this was going to get worse, I would need proof. The phone rang in my hand. Marcus's name on the screen. I walked into my office and answered it. Yes. You think you're so clever, don't you? Marcus's voice shook with barely controlled rage. Showing up tonight. Playing the wounded mother. Getting Patricia on your side. You humiliated us. You destroyed our reputation in front of Sarah's boss and the entire office. Kept my voice level and calm. I came to wish you happy Thanksgiving. You chose to turn me away at the door in front of your guests. Patricia recognized me. The consequences are yours, not mine. Consequences. His voice climbed higher. Sarah might lose her promotion because of you. Do you understand that? Years of work ruined because you couldn't handle not being invited to one dinner. If her career suffers, it's because of how she treated me, Marcus. Not because I showed up. You'll regret this, he shouted. The control was completely gone now. We're not going to let you destroy what we've built. We'll find a way to make you pay for this. You're going to wish you'd just stayed home. I held the phone away from my ear as he continued. His words dissolved into sounds that didn't make sense. When the angry rant finally ended with heavy breathing, I brought the phone back. Are you finished? I asked quietly. Silence. Then go ahead. Don't call this number again unless you have something productive to say. Hung up. I set the phone on my desk. I stared at it for a long moment. Marcus's threat echoed in my mind. Not the specific words. Those were empty threats from a scared man. But the intent behind them. They weren't going to accept this quietly. They weren't going to learn from it or change. They were going to fight back. I looked around my office. The filing cabinet with years of papers. The computer with access to investment accounts and company reports. The phone with Marcus's threatening messages backed up in 3 separate places. Sarah thought I was weak because I lived simply. Marcus thought I was irrelevant because I didn't show off my wealth. They had both completely underestimated me. I opened my laptop and created a new folder. I named it Marcus Documentation. I started gathering files. Bank transfers. Loan papers. Email requests for money. Every piece of evidence from the past 12 years. This wasn't over. It was just starting. Friday morning came with pale sunlight and 4 text messages from Sarah. All sent between midnight and 2 in the morning. How could you do this to us? Marcus is terrified he'll lose his job because of what you did. You had no right to embarrass us in front of my boss. This is so unfair. We just wanted a nice dinner. You've always been controlling, but this is a new low. I read them over tea at my kitchen table. Anger. Accusations. Playing the victim. Not one word of apology or thinking about what they did wrong. I didn't respond. Saturday brought a different tone in the messages. Margaret, we didn't know Patricia was your old partner. If you'd told us about your real estate investments, things would have been different. You always acted like you were barely getting by. How were we supposed to know? We would have included you if we'd understood your actual situation. Still no apology. Just excuses. The message was clear as glass. They would have treated me better if they'd known I had money and power. The fact that I was Marcus's mother apparently wasn't reason enough to treat me with basic respect. Sunday's messages changed again. Can we please just move past this? You're still my mother-in-law. Family is supposed to forgive each other. Let's have lunch this week, just us 3, and talk everything through calmly. We can start over fresh. Marcus misses you. Can we fix this, please? Manipulation now. Fake warmth trying to smooth things over. She said Marcus missed me. But only after learning about my bank account. I took screenshots of every message. I added them to my documentation folder. I watched the pattern emerge clearly. Rage when consequences appeared. Excuses when rage didn't work. Sweet manipulation when excuses failed. Not once did she say they were wrong. Not once did she admit that rejecting your husband's mother at Thanksgiving was cruel regardless of her money situation. Monday morning I met Patricia at a coffee shop in downtown Austin. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees waiting for us. "You look tired," she said as I sat down. "It's been a busy weekend. Lots of messages from Sarah and Marcus." "I can imagine," Patricia said. She slid her phone across the table. "You should see these." I looked at the screen. Emails forwarded to Patricia from different employees. The names were hidden to protect who sent them, but the content was clear as day. Several people reporting that Sarah had been talking around the office for months about Marcus's poor mother who couldn't manage her life properly, using my supposed struggles as part of their story. The self-made couple who succeeded despite difficult family holding them back. "They've been using you as their success story," Patricia said quietly. "The obstacle they overcame to get where they are." I set the phone down carefully. "How many people have come forward with this?" "5 so far," Patricia answered. 2 from marketing, 1 from operations, 1 from IT, 1 from sales. All feeling uncomfortable after Thursday night, realizing the story was completely made up. "They turn my privacy into their marketing tool," I said. "Worse," Patricia replied. "They turned your choice to live modestly into proof of failure." The office atmosphere right now is very tense. Some people think it's entertaining gossip. Others are genuinely disturbed by how they treated a major investor. "Your 3 dinner companions from Thursday have been influential. They've been sharing their impressions of you, talking about your character and integrity. Sarah's credibility is damaged badly." I absorbed this information slowly. They hadn't just rejected me in private. They had been tearing me down publicly for months, building their image on the fake ruins of mine. "What happens now?" I asked. "Officially, they're both being watched very carefully. I'm meeting with Sarah this week to review her conduct. I might issue a formal warning." Patricia paused. "Unofficially, her path at Summit Solutions is essentially over. Nobody trusts her anymore. Nobody wants to work with someone who talks badly about family members to make themselves look good." We talked for another 30 minutes. Patricia offered her support. She promised to keep me informed of developments. When we parted, she said, "Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people face the natural consequences of their actions." But I wasn't sure I agreed. Natural consequences felt too passive. Sarah and Marcus understood power, money, and status. If I wanted real justice, I needed to speak their language. That afternoon I drove to Helen Park's office in central Austin. Helen was my neighbor, an attorney who handled civil matters and contracts. We weren't close friends, but we'd had pleasant conversations over the years. Her office was small and professional, lined with law books. She greeted me warmly, offered tea, gestured to a chair across from her desk. "Margaret, what brings you in? Is everything all right?" I opened the folder I'd brought. Copies of bank transfers, email requests, loan papers. I laid it out systematically on her desk. I need advice about recovering money I loaned and protecting myself from possible retaliation. Helen listened carefully as I explained everything. 12 years of loans and gifts. The car money never returned. The recent $800. Marcus's threatening phone call. Sarah's escalating messages. He took notes, asked questions to clarify details. Reviewed the papers with professional interest. "You have very clear grounds for demanding repayment," she said finally. "The $10,000 for the vehicle is particularly strong. Bank transfer with his email acknowledging it was a loan. The house money gets more complicated if it was presented as a gift. But the car loan is solid. What about protection from them?" Yes. Marcus made threats. "Document everything," Helen said. "Keep recordings if you have them. Screenshot all messages. Maintain a detailed timeline. If threats turn into harassment, we can pursue a protective order." She paused and leaned forward. "There's another angle here. As a major shareholder in their company, you have certain rights. You can request audits, performance reviews, departmental assessments." I looked up from my notes. "How does that work exactly?" Private equity shareholders, especially at your level of investment, can request information about company operations. But Margaret, she leaned forward more. Be very careful. Using shareholder rights to address personal grievances gets legally complicated. Can backfire both legally and professionally. Understand, I said. We talked for another 20 minutes. Helen outlined my options carefully. She explained procedures. She warned about potential problems. She was thorough, professional, and cautious. Took careful notes. I asked specific questions. I absorbed the framework she provided. When I left her office and drove back home, my mind was working differently than it had in days. Not dwelling on hurt anymore. Not replaying conversations over and over. Calculating instead. What leverage did I actually have? The loans. Legal, documented, recoverable. My shareholder position. Powerful but requiring careful use. Patricia's support. Valuable for information and credibility. Sarah and Marcus's damaged reputation. Already unfolding without my direct intervention. What did I actually want from all this? Not reconciliation. They'd proven that was impossible with their behavior. Not mere repayment of money. That was too simple and transactional. Something else. Something that made them truly understand what they'd done. Made them face real consequences. Made them recognize they couldn't treat people as disposable resources to use and discard. Justice. Education. Perhaps a kind of correction to their worldview. The structure of a plan started forming as I drove home. Not revenge in the petty sense. Something colder. More systematic. Using the tools I had available. The language they understood. The leverage I'd been too kind to employ before. They'd called me weak and embarrassing. Said I wasn't respectable enough for their table. They were about to learn what quiet strength looked like when it finally decided to push back. Tuesday morning, December 2nd, I sat at my home office desk. My documentation folder was open in front of me. My notebook with strategic notes beside it. My phone in hand. The plan was clear in my mind. I just needed to execute it step by step. I called Patricia at 9:30 in the morning. Her assistant put me through immediately. Margaret, good morning. Is everything all right? Morning, Patricia. I've been reviewing the quarterly reports for Summit Solutions. As a significant stakeholder in Blackwell Properties, I'd like better visibility into how efficiently the marketing division operates. Would an internal review be appropriate? There was a pause on the line. I could almost hear Patricia's mind working through what that meant. That's absolutely within your rights as a major shareholder, she said carefully. Given recent circumstances, I'd be very interested in those findings myself. I'll have my review team start today. I appreciate that very much, I said. Please let me know what you discover. The review took 4 days to complete. I went about my normal routine during that time. Morning tea. Reviewing investment portfolios. Walks around my neighborhood. My phone stayed mostly silent. Sarah had stopped calling after her weekend messages went unanswered. Friday evening, Patricia called me. Margaret, we found serious problems. Her voice was tight with controlled anger. Sarah's been taking credit for other people's work. Inflating her contribution to projects to make herself look better. Questionable expense reports for client meetings that may not have happened. Nothing illegal exactly. But clear violations of company policy and ethics. I took notes as she talked. What's the appropriate response in your view? Demotion at minimum, Patricia said. I'm addressing it Monday morning. She'll drop from senior marketing coordinator to junior associate. Salary reduction from $75,000 to $50,000 annually. And Marcus? Ask carefully. Written warning for not reporting the issues since he sometimes worked with her on joint projects. He should have noticed and said something. This goes in his permanent record at his own company. I thanked her for keeping me informed and being thorough. After hanging up, I sat quietly, processing everything. The first consequence had landed exactly as I'd planned. That same afternoon, I received the formal demand letter Helen Park had prepared for me. It was professional, cold, and legally precise. It listed the car loan, the Thanksgiving money, plus interest according to law. Total amount: $11,400. Payment due within 14 days or I would file a lawsuit. Helen sent it by certified mail to their address. I had to sign for the tracking. Saturday morning my phone started ringing constantly. Sarah's number. I didn't answer any calls. She left a voicemail. Her voice sounded panicked and desperate. Margaret, please call me back. We got a letter from your attorney. We can't pay $11,000 right now. I just got demoted. We're barely making our mortgage payment. Please, we need to talk about this. Sunday brought more calls and more voicemails. Her voice got increasingly desperate with each one. Margaret, I know you're angry, but this is too much. We'll lose the house. We have car payments, insurance, medical bills. I'll pay you back. Promise. But I need time. Please answer your phone. I listened to each message one time. Saved them all. Made notes in my documentation file. Evidence of their deteriorating situation and their panic. Then I went back to my normal routine. Made tea. Read my book. Tended my small garden. Monday morning, December 8th. I met Patricia at the same coffee shop where we'd met the week before. Same corner table. Same drink order. How did the meeting go? I asked after we'd settled in with our drinks. Sarah took it very badly, Patricia said. She cried. She claimed she was being targeted unfairly. She threatened to sue for wrongful demotion. HR documented everything carefully. She's lucky to still have any position at all. I sipped my tea slowly. I've been reviewing the quarterly numbers more closely. Sarah's division has underperformed for 3 consecutive quarters. With these review findings, maybe that division needs restructuring entirely. Fresh leadership might significantly improve those metrics. Patricia looked at me for a long moment. Her expression was unreadable. I've been thinking along those same lines. The board has been asking difficult questions about that division's performance. This might be exactly the right time to make significant changes. We talked for another 20 minutes. Company strategy, investment returns, market conditions, normal business discussion. When we parted in the parking lot, Patricia said, I'll keep you informed about any personnel decisions we make. Tuesday afternoon, December 10th, Patricia called me again. Margaret, I thought you should know. We eliminated Sarah's position this morning. Department restructuring due to sustained underperformance. She's been let go entirely. The situation is resolved from a company perspective. I stood at my living room window looking out at my small garden. The December cold had stripped most plants bare. Thank you for keeping me informed, Patricia. I appreciate your professionalism. Margaret, are you doing all right with all of this? Yes, I said. Think I am. After hanging up, I sat in my favorite chair for a long time. The house was very quiet around me. Outside, a cold front was moving through, dropping temperatures into the 30s. I thought about Sarah and Marcus in their expensive house with their expensive cars and their suddenly drastically reduced income. I thought about the $98,000 I'd given over 12 years. Always saying yes. Always hoping it would be enough to keep my son close. I thought about being turned away from Thanksgiving dinner because my clothes and car didn't match their image. The revenge was complete now. Sarah's career destroyed. Their finances in crisis. Their reputation in ruins throughout their professional network. Everything accomplished through completely legitimate means. Shareholder oversight. Debt collection. Business restructuring. Nothing illegal. Nothing they could fight in court. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow and empty inside. My phone buzzed with a text message. Sarah's number. Margaret, I need to see you. Can I please come to your house today? It's urgent. I stared at the message for several long minutes. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I typed a simple response. 3 o'clock this afternoon. Come alone without Marcus. Wednesday morning, December 11th, I woke early and made my tea. The text from Sarah sat on my phone like a weight. I'd agreed to see her at 3 o'clock. Now I needed to decide what I actually wanted from that conversation. What would be enough? Justice without cruelty seemed right. Consequences with a possible path forward. Those seemed like reasonable boundaries. 2:50 I stood at my living room window. Teacup warming my cold hands. Car pulled into my driveway. Sarah's sedan, not their truck. She got out slowly. She looked exhausted and much thinner. Her clothes were neat but plain. Not the designer outfits from Thanksgiving. She'd clearly lost weight. Dark circles shadowed her eyes deeply. She walked to my door with slow steps and knocked softly, almost timidly. I opened the door and stepped back without speaking, without smiling. She entered quietly. I gestured toward the living room. She sat on the very edge of the couch, not relaxing back into it. I took my usual chair across from her. For a long moment neither of us spoke. We just looked at each other. Then Sarah completely broke down. Not the controlled tears of manipulation I'd seen before, but genuine sobbing, hard gasping, ugly crying that shook her whole body. Through the crying words tumbled out between gasps. "Margaret, I'm so sorry. I've been absolutely horrible to you. I was greedy and shallow, and I turned you into something shameful when you were the only person who ever truly loved Marcus." I remained completely still, watching, listening, evaluating whether this was real. "I told people at work you were struggling financially," she continued. "That Marcus had made it on his own despite having a mother who couldn't get her life together. I used you as a story to make myself look successful and self-made. I'm completely disgusted with myself." She wiped her face with shaking hands, pulled tissues from her purse with trembling fingers. "Marcus has been lying to me for 8 months. Seeing someone from his gym. I found the messages 3 days ago on his phone. When I confronted him about it, he said it was my fault. Said I ruined everything by not being smart enough to keep you away from the dinner. He blamed you for his own choices and failures. And I realized something," Sarah said. Her voice was raw and broken. "When everything fell apart, you were the only person who ever actually cared about Marcus. Really cared. Not about what he could do for them or how he made them look. You just loved him. And I destroyed that." Sarah reached into her purse with shaking hands. She pulled out an envelope and set it on the coffee table between us with great care. $3,000. Everything I could gather from selling my jewelry and emptying what was left in my savings account. She placed a document beside the envelope. A notarized repayment plan for the remaining $8,400. $150 monthly for the next several years. "I'm not asking you to negotiate or be flexible. I'm just acknowledging what I owe you. What we owe you." I picked up the envelope carefully, opened it, counted the checks inside. $3,000 exactly. I looked at the repayment plan. Professionally prepared with realistic terms she could actually manage. Then I tore the plan in half. Once, 3 times, 4 times. The pieces fell onto the coffee table like snow. Sarah's eyes went very wide. Her mouth opened in shock. "Margaret, I'm canceling the entire debt," I said quietly. My voice was calm and firm. "Consider it a final gift from your old life to whatever comes next for you." She started crying again. Even harder than before. "I don't deserve that kindness. I don't deserve anything from you." "No," I agreed simply. "You don't deserve it. But I'm doing it anyway because that's who I choose to be." I stood up and walked to my desk. I retrieved my calendar. I sat back down and opened it to December. Took out a pen. "Every Sunday for 1 full year you visit me here," I said while marking dates. "Not when you need something. Not when there's a crisis to manage. Just to be here. To sit and talk. To rebuild what you helped destroy." I marked each Sunday with a small red circle. 52 Sundays. This is completely non-negotiable. Miss 3 visits without a legitimate reason, and the full debt of $11,400 reinstates immediately. Do you understand? Sarah looked at the marked calendar. Then at me. Her eyes were red and swollen. "I'll be here every single Sunday, Margaret. Promise. I'll prove I can be the daughter-in-law you deserved from the beginning." "I accept your apology," I said carefully. "But Sarah, acceptance is not the same as forgiveness. And forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. You'll get exactly 1 chance to rebuild trust. 1. And it starts with consistent actions, not words or promises. She nodded while wiping her eyes with tissues. I'm filing for divorce from Marcus. I should have done it years ago. He showed me who he really is when the money and status disappeared. When things got hard, we talked for another hour. About her job search, her plans to move to a smaller apartment, her recognition of how badly she'd prioritized everything in her life, her understanding that she'd become someone she didn't recognize or respect. When she finally stood to leave, I walked her to the door. At the threshold, she turned. She looked like she wanted to hug me. I held up one hand firmly. Not yet, I said simply. Tunde. First visit. She nodded with understanding. Walked to her car with slumped shoulders. I watched through my window until she drove away completely. That evening I sat on my back porch despite the December cold. Teacup in hand. Warm blanket over my lap. My small garden was barely visible in the growing darkness. The bare trees stark against the evening sky. My phone rang. Patricia's name on the screen. Answered. Margaret, I have a proposition for you, she said. Her voice was warm and professional. Summit Solutions needs strategic consulting. Someone with your experience and business instincts. Not full-time employment, but meaningful engagement. An advisory role. Solid compensation. Complete respect for your time and expertise. What do you say? I smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. I'd like that very much, Patricia. I'm ready to engage with the business world again. Excellent, she said. I'm genuinely pleased. I'll have contracts drawn up this week. I'm looking forward to working with you properly again, partner. After hanging up, I sat in the cold evening air. Just sitting and thinking. Feeling something close to peace for the first time since this all began. My calendar lay on the small patio table beside me. This coming Sunday was circled in red marker. Sarah's first visit. The beginning of rebuilding if she actually proved capable of real change. I thought about the past 3 weeks. The phone call asking for money. The rejection at Thanksgiving. The public humiliation at their door. The systematic dismantling of their carefully constructed facade. The revenge had been complete and thorough. But more importantly, real justice had been served. They'd seen me as weak because I lived modestly. As irrelevant because I didn't show off my wealth. As disposable because I'd always said yes without any conditions or boundaries. They'd learned otherwise. Not through rage or violence or screaming. But through the quiet, patient application of leverage they'd never known I possessed. Through the careful execution of consequences they'd earned entirely through their own choices and actions. I looked at my modest house through the window. My comfortable life. The gardens stretching out before me in the gathering darkness. This was enough. It had always been enough. I just needed to stop letting other people tell me it wasn't. Sunday would come soon. Sarah would arrive or she wouldn't. Either way I'd survive and be fine. I'd done the hard work of standing up for my own dignity and worth. The rest was entirely up to her now. The tea had gone cold in my cup, but I didn't mind at all. I sat there as twilight faded into full night, watching the stars emerge one by one above my small garden, feeling something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Content, peaceful, on my own terms, with nothing left to prove to anyone. And that feeling, I realized, was worth more than all the money I'd ever given away. If you enjoyed this story from Granny's voice, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments below. What would you have done in Margaret's situation? Click the video on your screen to hear another story. Thank you so much for watching and listening.